minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It is hour number 3, our third and final, live right here on the early line on this Wednesday, all across the SportsGrid network. That is SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Our third and final hour to get you ready for game number 3 tonight in Dallas. We change venue for the first time between the Mavericks and the Celtics, with Boston holding that commanding 2-0 series advantage. A full preview of Game 3 on the horizon. A full preview of this full slate on a Wednesday around Major League Baseball as well. And a discussion around hot dogs and who can eat the most of them to start this third and final hour. DRS should be a good time.
Yeah, big hot dog guy as well. And also, it's interesting, like, which way do you like it? Because obviously we know ketchup is not allowed. It's ridiculous. Anybody putting ketchup there, straight to prison at this point. You just need some mustard, maybe get some sauerkraut, maybe you get some relish on there, onions, all for it. Like a good dog on a holiday, nothing better than that, Ben.
Nothing better. You're a hot dog guy despite your eating habits and your eating pattern.
Yeah.
If you could break your fast with a hot dog, you would do so?
Absolutely. And by the way, also, like I don't like to go to other people's house and eat their barbecue because I just don't trust it. I got to cook it myself. But having said that,
fair enough.
Here's the key to having a good barbecue. When you show up to somebody else's house, it's hard to mess up hot dogs. Whether you get Nathan's or what Ballpark, whatever, you get a nice Frank, fantastic.
Yeah.
But if I see that you are not using potato rolls as the bun itself, I'm completely out. Like we can't just have that stale, whack, white bread bun and eat a hot dog with it. It's got to be potato. It absolutely makes the hot dog.
I think it's really well said. I think a potato roll is the way to do it if you are having a barbecue. Know that as summer is quickly approaching and the weather gets warmer. The reason we are having this conversation is, of course, the big news of yesterday in the sporting landscape. Joey Chestnut, the 16-time mustard belt champion, the greatest of all time when it comes to guzzling glizzies and being a competitive eater, is not slated to compete in this year's 2024 Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest on July 4th. We will detail why once we hear from you. If Joey Chestnut is not in the field on the corner of Surf and Stillwell in the hot dog eating contest on Independence Day, will you tune in That was the question in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, and it's a divisive one. Will you watch the Nathan's hot dog eating contest this year without Joey Chestnut in the field? Your three options. Yes, no, I don't watch anyway. Most of the public, more than 46% of the votes, DRS, saying no. If the champion is not there, I will not be viewing it. And then the second most selected, I don't watch anyway. I voted yes, because for me, outside of Joey Chestnut, Independence Day starts with the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. But it seems as though, DRS, I'm in the minority. Which way did you vote?
I voted no, but it's not something that, I have to watch on a year-to-year basis. But if I catch it at the right time, I absolutely will do that. So, trying to throw me off my game here now when I pay attention to the monitors up here on the screen. Yeah, so, but having said that.
Well, hold on a second.
There you go.
Hold on a second. No. What is that? Explain it, please.
That was this. I think this was around the pandemic, I want to say, where we were getting ready. I was doing an interview with Joey Chestnut to sort of say, how's it coming along? What's he been doing lately? He was fresh off like a Big Mac challenge where he ate 25 of them in a certain amount of time. Yeah. But we were really asking the preparation process to go through what it takes to win and stuff like that. So I've done so I feel I have more of a connection here than most people into this contest, being very good friends with Joey Chestnut. But having said that, I think this is the perfect break here. And what I mean by that is we can get back to the basis of what the hot dog eating contest was supposed to be. Now, granted, it's turned into a freak show over the past 15 years with how much these guys can actually eat. But let's be honest. When you sit down and say to yourself, you and your friends, hey, who can eat the most hot dogs? You know how you do it?
Yeah.
You just have the roll, you have the bun, you eat it, maybe you put some mustard on it and see how many you can get through. I don't know when we sort of got into let's take all the hot dogs off, mash them in our mouth, dip buns in there, mash it in our mouth. Can we just go back now? Wouldn't it be the perfect time to say the superstars are not competing here? Let's go back to eating them one by one the right way, and we can all enjoy it. And we can be like, you know what? I can go out on my grill and do that right now, because I don't think anybody's like, hey, you know what? Watch this barbecue today. Give me a big cup of water so I can dip these buns in water and eat them real quick. Stop it.
So, DRS, the only thing I would say, even if Joey Chestnut is not in the field, I still think the style of trying to hammer as many dogs as possible is going to remain. You split the hot dog in two, you dunk the buns in some water, you stuff it all in your mouth. It does get a little bit gross at times, and that's why many might not even watch the hot dog eating contest in the first place. But one of the reasons that we have seen great success and triumphs in this event is because of Joey Chestnut. 16 consecutive mustard belts on July 4th on the corner of Surf and Silwell. Not consecutive, by the way. I misspoke. 16 mustard belts. He has won every single one, 8 in a row since 2016. He is the only guy to ever eat 70 hot dogs during the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest, and he has done that 6 different times. He holds the record that he set back in 2021, and it still stands. 76 hot dogs eaten. This from the man known as Jaws himself, saying yesterday on Twitter, I was gutted to learn from the media that after 19 years, I'm banned from the Nathan's July 4th hot dog eating contest. To set the record straight, I do not have a contract with MLE, that's Major League Eating, or Nathan's, and they are looking to change the rules from past years as it relates to other partners I can work with. This is apparently the basis on which I'm being banned, and it doesn't impact the July 4th event. So there is something getting crossed here in the words from MLE, in the words from Joey Jaws Chestnut. The reason that he is being banned, although Major League Eating says he is not being banned from the event, is that Joey Chestnut is now a partner with Impossible Foods that produces a vegan option of a hot dog. And he is saying he wants to eat those, where Nathan's Famous is saying, no, you got to eat the hot dogs that we provide. As of this moment, Joey Chestnut is not in the field, but there is a hope that America shall triumph, DRS, and that Joey Chestnut, by the time we get to Independence Day and the 4th of July in 2024, will compete in the event to put his title defense of 16 mustard belts on the line.
And by the way, it's a simple solution here. Like, you can be represented by this other company, but the fact that it's like, well, I'm not eating the Nathan's hot dog during the competition, I'll eat the other one. It doesn't make sense. Like, we love the FanDuel Sportsbook here. Ben and I aren't going to come on tomorrow and do a Bizarro World show. We just talk about other sports books and how great they might be, because this is a FanDuel show. This is what we do. We keep it in halves. We spread the love right here on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Why would you do that if you're Joey Chestnut? It's so simple. And I'm sure all of the hype around this controversy probably paid for itself in advertising for whatever company that he wants. Just go back to the other hot dogs, live it up, eat in the competition. We'll all watch and then go back to representing the vegan hot dogs right after the competition. They got exactly what they wanted out of this. Now just be in the competition and eat the hot dogs everybody else is eating.
Is it a publicity stunt? Maybe so.
Yes.
Have they drawn the...
Yeah. Look at that. I mean, look at how crazy Ben is. Like, look at the publicity stunt Ben just pulled off by freezing live up on camera here before we talk about the rest of this hot dog competition. But we will watch. He'll get back in it. He's too much of an institution to kick live off of the air. You can't do that. Exactly. Look at that. Me and Joey Chestnut, I'll call him tonight. We'll get this thing worked out. Ben's back here. He's not frozen up, and away we go.
I'm not frozen. Joey Chestnut should not be frozen out of the event. Joe Frizo once ate 50 chicken nuggets. There's a fun fact for you. He made this next.
Don't believe it.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen. And the answer is, it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
1.81 goals against average, 920 save percentage. He's also 6-2 in his last 8 road starts as well. The Oilers are a great road team. I actually think it's an advantage for them that they don't have home ice. That potentially 4 of the games are on the road. We've seen 56% of the games this year in the NHL playoffs, the road team has actually won.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line on this Wednesday to go around Major League Baseball. You know what that means. It's Ben, it's Donnie, and it's the man in the middle. It is Craig Mish, our MLB insider here on the SportsGrid Network, the host of Newswire at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Craig, thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday on the early line.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I feel like I'm waking up every morning with an Aaron Judge home run. This is sort of an incredible run. I hate to do Yankee stuff right here at the top, and I could usually pass on the Yankee stuff, but I mean it's really his. I know Stanton hit the 440 home run yesterday, but really when you think about what Judge is doing, pretty soon we're going to be talking a chase for 60 again here. I have a feeling.
25 home runs for Aaron Judge this season, the most in Major League Baseball, 4 more than the second most. That's Baltimore's Gunnar Henderson. And he's also got 62 RBIs, does Aaron Judge, tied for the most around MLB with Cleveland's Jose Ramirez. So, Craig, as we go elsewhere around Major League Baseball, a full slate on a Tuesday, a full slate on this Wednesday. These months, MLB doesn't stop. On a daily basis, it's the daily basis. Craig!
Yes.
That's what I think we should do at the end of that.
Correct.
That's pretty good. Everybody, for tomorrow, for our third rendition of the true daily basis, everybody get that done. All right, so Craig, as we look back on a few games from yesterday, we start in Baltimore. The O's were actually a home underdog against the Atlanta Braves, and Baltimore victorious, 4-0, blanking the Braves on the other side. The Orioles have won 15 of their last 19 games. What was your reaction from the 4-0 shutout yesterday in favor of Baltimore?
Well, my reaction has been I'm sort of stunned that we're coming on the show here every day talking about the same situation. We know who Baltimore is, okay? Baltimore's going to be in the postseason. They're going to win about 90 games. Maybe they win the division. Maybe they win the wild card. We'll see if they add some stuff, a second pitcher, a third pitcher. We know exactly where they're headed. Guys, the Braves have to start getting concerned here. I mean, the Braves, in terms of offense, if I'm not mistaken, are barely top 20 in OPS, barely top 15 in runs scored. I mean, that's a borderline non-postseason team, really, when you think about it. They're very fortunate that Reynaldo Lopez has been really good for them, and Chris Sale has been very good for them as well. So I never would have thought that heading into the month of July, when the Braves start looking at ways to upgrade the team, that they'd be looking at offensive players. I just did not think that would be happening. But I think it's fair to say at this point, without Ronald Acuna Jr., that's one thing. It doesn't appear Austin Riley is healthy. Like there's something missing there, I think, with him this season. And then all of a sudden you're asking Ozzie Albies and now Sean Murphy being back and some of the other players on the team, Marcell Ozuna, has done a great job to carry them. I mean, the Braves may need to add another big offensive piece to make a postseason push because, simply put, they're falling way too far behind the Phillies to think that they're going to have a shot this summer of catching them.
10 games back right now, Craig, the Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East. We'll watch that play out over the summer. But the one thing we are having fun watching play out is Paul Skeens' early Major League Baseball career. He's been phenomenal, and that included yesterday. 6 1/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, no earned runs, and ERA now below 2.5 at 2.43 exactly. Talk to us here about Paul Skeens and the expectations, again, for the rest of the summer. 103 pitches, Craig, they let him go. Are we going to see more of this?
Yeah, I come on the show every week. Skeens pitches. It seems like I'm on. I mean, his time to pitch seems to be either Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday because that's when I'm on the show with you guys every week. It's just lining up perfectly for me here. I mean, he's been fantastic. I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, right now you look at his Rookie of the Year odds, and all of a sudden you really have to start taking them more seriously. As long as he pitches deep into the season, I think he's got a great shot. As we've talked about, Imanaga, who is still barely the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year, is going to pitch for the Cubs all the way through until the last day of the season. In fact, if it is close, I could absolutely see Craig Counsell going, you know what, Imanaga, take the mound for the final game and try to win that award. So that's what Skeens has up against him. But as far as talent-wise is concerned, the next 5 years, Imanaga or Skeens, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, Skeens is going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And he's just going over all of these props that he has every single day. Fading him is the wrong decision at this point. I know that they're set very high, but he has been as advertised in his first month plus.
Yes, he certainly has. In 5 of his 6 career starts, he has struck out at least 7. In all 5 of those games, the Pittsburgh Pirates have been victorious. Other news around Major League Baseball from yesterday, JT Realmuto, the catcher for the Philadelphia Phillies, needs knee surgery and is going to be placed on the IL. How about the faces on the bases on a daily basis? That's pretty good stuff here on the early line. Not good, though, for Philadelphia. Craig, how important is the impact of losing JT Realmuto for Philadelphia the rest of the summer?
Well, anybody knows I'm very heavily biased talking about this player. This is, somebody that I've known for a very long time, going back to his Marlins days, and, somebody who I respect a ton for everything that he's done on the field. And I think Dave Dombrowski said it best yesterday. This guy is a warrior, I believe was the quote that he used, just, what he's been playing through. And, for me, it's a little different with JT because, again, I've, known him for a long time. And to see him not stealing any bases, guys, told me something was strange, through the first couple of months. Because this is a guy that prides himself on double-digit steals. In fact, if you look at the history of baseball, I think Realmuto's already getting close to the top 10 in history for stolen bases for a catcher. Think about that. So they're going to miss him, but being 10 games up and a surgery like this is 4 to 6 weeks, what do I guess? 8 weeks, right? Right, Donnie? Bring him back in August. Bring him back in September. You're going to make the playoffs. There's no reason to rush him. And remember, he can play a little bit of first base and DH, but wear and tear on a catcher, guys, is like no other. I mean, you talk about running backs in football. I get it. Short lifespan, 3-4, and then they're out of the league. Catchers, guys, as far as offensive catchers, very difficult to maintain over the course of almost 10 years for JT.
The Phils, a win yesterday in Boston, the most in the National League, but still some tough news for Philadelphia. We got around all the bases. Let's get through home. Some day baseball action, an Aces affair in San Francisco. It's the Giants and the Astros. Logan Webb for San Fran, Robert Valdez on the other side for the Astros. We'll bring
Great
you
prediction.
Next, Craig. Thanks.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
3-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
1.81 goals against average, 9.20 save percentage. He's also 6-2 in his last 8 road starts as well. The Oilers are a great road team. I actually think it's an advantage for them that they don't have home ice. That potentially 4 of the games are on the road. We've seen 56% of the games this year in the NHL playoffs, the road team has actually won.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Wednesday on the early line. We can't talk about the Astros and Giants game despite barely showing you the board. So now we go to Kansas City. We start inside Kauffman Stadium between the New York Yankees and the Kansas City Royals. 2 games so far in KC this week. Between these two victories for the Yanks. They've been a road favorite in both of those games. Tonight inside KC, a road favorite once again. -146. The price, 10.5. The total. DRS, we expecting some runs tonight in Kansas City.
85 degrees at first pitch, 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left field here, which sets up very well for right-handed batters. So if you take a look at Daniel Lynch, the left-handed pitcher on the mound, he's only faced 12 left-handed batters on the season. It's done very well against them. It is a different story against right-handed batters. On the season, a 240 ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 363. So those right-handed batters you're taking a look at, in the 3-hole, it's Aaron Judge. In the 4-hole, it's Giancarlo Stanton. Judge, a 533 ISO power number against left-handed pitching over the past month. Giancarlo Stanton, 353. Both of those guys should be on your card for RBIs and also possibility of home run props because, as we say, Aaron Judge just about every single day hits one. Poteet's going to be on the mound for the opposite side for the Yankees. Not great splits from him either and good hitting conditions. I do think the Yankees win this game tonight, but more importantly, Judge and Stanton, first and foremost on your card, absolutely.
I mean, how could you not at this point? 25 home runs this year for Aaron Judge. He hit 3 long balls in the final 2 games of the series against the Dodgers. Had a day off on Monday in KC. Another home run and 3 more RBIs last night for Judge, who not only leads all of MLB with 25 homers, also tied for the most RBIs with 62. I've been waiting all day to preview this game that we have tonight in Baltimore. It's the Orioles and the Braves. Atlanta's starter today is Spencer Schwellenbach, a former Nebraska Cornhusker. Baltimore's starter today is Cade Povich, a former Nebraska Cornhusker. This is the first time in Major League Baseball history that 2 former Nebraska pitchers are starting a game against one another. And the O's, one of the hottest teams right now in all of Major League Baseball. 15 wins in their last 19 games as that continued today inside Camden.
Poor Spencer Schwellenbach today. 80-degree temperatures in Baltimore, wind blowing out dead center field. And take a look at this offense over the past 30 days against right-handed pitching here. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Ryan Mountcastle, Ryan O'Hearn, Anthony Santander, Jordan Westberg, all heavy ISO power numbers to the positive. Heavy weighted on base percentages to the positive here. This is going to be a tough get out. Now, also, if you're looking for help and support from the offense, it hasn't been there for Atlanta. Take a look at the left-handed pitcher, Cade Povich, on the mound, who doesn't have very good pitching splits here through just 25 batters this season. But if we look at that Atlanta Braves lineup against left-handed pitching over the past 30 days, it's been terrible. Only 2 guys pop up. It's Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna. Everybody else has been a wash. So, again, the Baltimore Orioles should be able to handle their business with a victory, and they should be able to hit their team total. And a couple of those guys that I just mentioned should be in your boxes there for RBI as well. Looks like a nice day for Baltimore if Povich, I should say, just gives them a little bit on the mound.
We hope that he will. Nebraska on display today in Baltimore between the O's and the Braves. Not sure what the team total was last night for the Dodgers, but I know they went over it. They scored 15 runs back at the Ravine against the Texas Rangers, including 7 in the 6th, featuring 4 home runs from Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, and Jason Hayward. Will we see more offense today out of L.A. against the Texas Rangers, booked as a pretty hefty home favorite?
I mean, could be. We're taking a look at some of the statistics over the past 30 days, which aren't that bad for John Gray. Only 58 batters faced, but how about this? An ISO of 021 and a weighted on base percentage of 236 combined. That's not bad here. First 5 batters in the Dodgers lineup have been doing damage against right-handed pitching over the past month. That's Ohtani, Freeman, Smith, and Teoscar Hernandez. Certainly should be opportunities there for RBI. Walker Buehler on the other side. In the past, you look at a Buehler start and say this is an automatic W, but not so much anymore. 125 batters he's faced on the season, 239 ISO, 379 weighted on base percentage. As I say that, the Texas Rangers bats are ice cold right now, particularly against right-handed Pitching. You take a look at the last 30 days, only one guy, it's Adolis Garcia, at a 190 ISO. Every single player is below that. I don't know where the runs come from today for the Texas Rangers, even though Walker Buehler has been struggling. Probably another dub here for the Dodgers.
The reigning World Series champs, Texas, 4 games below 500. Walker Buehler, to get him back after 2 years away, big stuff for LA for the rest of the year, but so far, 1-3 only with a 4.82 ERA. This is June. Next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
1.81 goals against average, 9.20 save percentage. He's also 6-2 in his last 8 road starts as well. The Oilers are a great road team. I actually think it's an advantage for them that they don't have home ice. That potentially 4 of the games are on the road. We've seen 56% of the games this year in the NHL playoffs, the road team has actually won.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Now, this is a treat. If we sleep in May, do we go over potential June head coaching vacancies in this month? Because this is June, live right here on this Wednesday with John Rothstein, joining us once again on behalf of FanDuel, live right here on the early line. And, of course, John, we have to look back on the week that was in the carousel in Connecticut around Dan Hurley, who stays in stores, what it means for UConn and Dan Hurley's legacy moving forward. We do all of that here in June, but first we say welcome back to the early line. We're glad to have you.
Great to be with you, Ben. Always great to be talking college hoops with you and your esteemed crew.
And that is what happens here in the month of June. So let's go through the Dan Hurley timeline, because, John, it really came out of left field a week ago Thursday morning. Ahead of Game 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported the Lakers were targeting Dan Hurley as their next head coach. Dan Hurley goes to Los Angeles to meet with the Lakers the following day, and then over the weekend mulls his decision. And then a couple of days ago on Monday afternoon, we got that final determination that Dan Hurley was not going to go to Los Angeles, rejecting the Lakers' offer and would remain as UConn's head coach. Let's start with the timeline here, John. Do you believe, in everything that you have heard around this situation, Dan Hurley was seriously considering the Lakers' position?
He wouldn't have went to Los Angeles if he wasn't considering the Lakers position. And as you know, and it's been well documented, Dan Hurley met in person with the Lakers late last week and then returned to the East Coast. But there's a lot of reasons why Dan Hurley opted to remain at the University of Connecticut. A big one is the geographic portion of this. In my opinion, if the Knicks or the Celtics courted Dan Hurley to be its next head basketball coach, I think the result of this could have been different. But ultimately, the chance to go back to Connecticut, a place that Dan Hurley has reinvigorated under his watch and brought the Huskies back to a level that we saw under Jim Calhoun, that decision obviously usurped the ability to go cross country and be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers.
John, if we're taking a look at maybe that step from college into the pros, was this something that maybe the Hurley camp was putting out for feelers in the NBA, or just really caught him off guard and intrigued him when the Lakers made that first phone call?
Dan Hurley has been open about his desire to coach in the NBA, although with conversations that I've had with Dan Hurley, even some in the last couple of days after he made his decision, he initially thought that was going to be down the road. And again, I stand by what I said. If this was the Knicks, if this was the Celtics, if this was in a different geographic region, I think the result of this could have been different. But there's also the allure of chasing history next season at Connecticut. And there's also something that we have to keep in mind, guys, and this is something that isn't as pronounced in this transfer portal era. Dan Hurley is a very loyal person, especially when it comes to his players. And there's several players at UConn that he has coached now for multiple seasons that have been a part of teams that have won back-to-back national championships. Hassan Diarra, Alex Caravan, Samson Johnson. He knows he owes it to those players who committed to him to see this thing through, especially when this courtship started in early June.
So, John, the best coach currently in college basketball remains in college basketball for UConn, for the sport as a whole. What does it mean that Dan Hurley is staying in Stores?
It's tremendous, and it's a major storyline now, obviously, going into next season, that UConn, again, a team that lost several key ingredients, again, from a team that was dominant in its run to a national championship, will be going for a three-peat in 24-25. You know, Ben, I understand fully what's going on off the field, off the court in college athletics, and I know how volatile it is. But you look right now here on June 12th about what lies ahead next season. UConn is going for a three-peat in men's basketball. We also have Alabama bringing back Mark Sears, adding Cliff Amore, trying to go back to the Final Four for the second consecutive year under Nate Oates. You also have to look at Duke bringing in a generational talent potentially in freshman forward Cooper Flagg. And on top of that, we have teams of high ilk in different conferences. UCLA, Oregon, USC, and Washington are going to the Big Ten. The Big 12 could potentially have 5 teams in the preseason top 10. Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and Arizona. I know how volatile things are off the court and off the field in college sports, but the on-court product in college basketball is extremely, extremely healthy.
It's going to be fun to watch UConn next year. And the reason I bring that up is Dan Hurley, 6 seasons, 141 wins at UConn, back-to-back national championships, going for a third. We know he is very loyal to that university. Did any of those conversations or talks come up between you and him where it's like, you know what, if I did go to the Lakers, that 30-day portal opens up, and who knows what sort of team that we would be fielding at UConn for the upcoming season? Now, crisis averted at that point, but that had to be a big thing that was sort of drawing him back to UConn.
It was definitely part of it, Donnie, but also we have to look at this too. When a college coach is going to entertain an NBA opportunity, if you're in an opportunity like Dan Hurley, where you have won and rebuilt UConn's program, again, to the level that it was under Jim Calhoun, you want to take an opportunity in the NBA if you're going to exercise that, demon, or demon might be the wrong word, but if you want to exercise that right to go coach in the NBA, I think you want to go into a situation where you know you're going to win and have success. I am not one of these people who covers college basketball all year long and then jumps in the next like I have a working knowledge of every NBA roster. But from the people I've talked to, we're in the NBA over the last week, they've told me that the Lakers are not exactly a ready-made championship team with obviously the history of LeBron James potentially maybe, retiring near the age of 40. I think that's something to really keep in mind right now. If a college coach is going to leave a tailor-made situation for success and go to the NBA, he's got to be in a situation where obviously he's set up to win.
Yeah, John, some of the reporting around the Lakers situation and their ownership group, there is the prestige of Los Angeles. There is the luster of this Lakers organization based on its history, but current day, maybe not as attractive of a head coaching position as some maybe originally thought. So let's focus on the college basketball perspective of this all. Connecticut, trying to win a third consecutive national championship, will enter next year as of this moment as a co-favorite to cut down the nets in early April. Once again, a 10-1 price for UConn alongside the Kansas Jayhawks. It is a tournament known as Madness that ends with a crowning of a national champion. So, John, is it realistic to expect the Connecticut Huskies to contend for a third straight title?
I think UConn's preseason ranking this year, after losing 4 starters, Newton, Spencer, Steph Castle, Donovan Clingan, from last year's team that went 37-3, is based more on what this program has done in the last 2 seasons than what the team looks like entering next year. But I will say this. You look at those ingredients right now in stores, Connecticut, and you're thinking about the meal that could be sampled. And you say, what? I don't know if the sauce is going to taste as good as it's been the last couple of years, but then you remember who the chef is, and the chef is Dan Hurley. And remember this, UConn does not have to be as dominant as it was in each of the past 2 seasons to win a national championship, because UConn in the last 2 seasons under Dan Hurley won 12 NCAA tournament games by an average of 21.7 points per game. I'm not saying that UConn is, one of the best teams, again, of all time. But I'll say this. You have to put them in the conversation among the best teams of all time when you look at different eras and so on and so forth, because of how dominant this team was. It's definitely one of the best teams of the modern era in college basketball. And again, I think you have to put it in the conversation. It's one of the best teams of all time, considering what this program has done under Dan Hurley in the past 2 years.
Listen, this was a treat. This is June with John Rothstein live right here on the early line. John, we appreciate the time as always. A preview of Game 3 of the NBA Finals next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
3-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
1.81 goals against average, 9.20 save percentage. He's also 6-2 in his last 8 road starts as well. The Oilers are a great road team. I actually think it's an advantage for them that they don't have home ice. That potentially 4 of the games are on the road. We've seen 56% of the games this year in the NHL playoffs, the road team has actually won.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. only on SportsGrid.
Game number 3 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight in Dallas. We change venues for the first time here in this championship set. To the Lone Star State we go. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Game number 3 tips between the Mavericks and the Celtics. Donnie, we have to start with the numbers. We have brought you the injury updates. We will continue to look at the ramifications for this third game and for the rest of the NBA Finals in just a moment. But the numbers, a story as well. Dallas, a 2.5-point home favorite tonight in game number 3. The total at 212 and a hook. To see the Mavs as a home favorite in the NBA Finals should not be shocking. Dallas, 8 home games throughout this postseason run. 5-3 straight up, 4-4 against the spread. All 8 booked as a favorite. But this is the first time now in what is going to be their 17th playoff game. The Celtics have been an underdog in this postseason. This is just the 4th time in what will be their 99th game of this NBA season overall. The Celtics are booked as an underdog. What do you make of the numbers ahead of game 3 tonight?
I think the numbers make some sense. Let's also take a look at the traveling of this line. -1.5 now up to -2.5. And yes, some of that has to do with a couple-day layoff, the must-win scenario for the Dallas Mavericks, and the uncertainty behind Kristaps Porzingis and what that injury actually means. We wouldn't be caring about that injury all that much if it was a 2-0 series lead where Porzingis hasn't come back yet into the NBA Finals and maybe he was lurking for game number 3. But also, taking a look at the betting statistics at the FanDuel Sportsbook, 54% of the wagers coming in on the Dallas Mavericks. So a slight public lean there. But how about this, Ben? 68% of the money also on the Dallas Mavericks. So the line moving in the right direction, 1.5 to 2.5. More bets coming in on Dallas, more money coming in on Dallas. That does make some sense. And also, right when that game ended on game number 2, you think to yourself, this doesn't look like it's going to be a very long series, and we don't know if it's getting back to, the Celtics to even play in a game in TD Garden. But I was always under the impression I really liked the Dallas Mavericks in game number 2. Now, they pushed on the cover of +7. I like, again, the Dallas Mavericks in game number 3. I think this is the game they win because the one thing we can understand, hey, close loss in game number 3, get them in game number 4. It doesn't work like that. The series is basically over at that point. They have to win tonight, and some things are moving in the right direction. We understand, hey, look at this. Injury information on Boston, one thing, but also on the Dallas Mavericks. Getting a knee injection to your MVP candidate here who says, you know what? I've been dealing with this for a while. I should be okay. I don't feel like I'm getting any of that nervousness by saying, hey, there's an alert mid-afternoon, downgrade on Luka Doncic here. As long as we don't get that, I think we're comfortable with the Mavericks tonight having a solid effort at home. The B players play better, and the superstars like Kyrie Irving show up for this one.
And even if there is a change in the injury designation for Luka Doncic, I do not believe it would be one to rule Doncic out for game number 3. Currently, Kristaps Porzingis is listed as questionable, but as we have shared, we do not expect to see him tonight in game 3. All of his props now off the board. More than likely, we do not expect to see KP for the remainder of this 2024 NBA Finals, which has changed the outright price in favor of Boston for winning NBA championship number 18 in franchise history. -950 yesterday, -770 as of now. Again, the C's with a commanding 2-0 series advantage, still a very heavy series favorite to win this NBA title, and still just a 2.5-point underdog tonight. But the line did move after the injury news around Kristaps Porzingis. So, DRS, you expect Dallas to win its first game of this NBA Finals tonight and potentially even cover that slight spread of 2.5 in favor of the Mavericks. If that happens, what does Dallas do to change the scope of this NBA championship set?
It's simple. You don't have to change anything Luka Doncic is doing at this point. Have him go out there, get close, if not get a triple-double, but also more importantly, just have the guys behind him hit open shots. We're not asking for Superman-level performances out of P.J. Washington, but if I'm kicking it to you for 3 and you're wide open on 8 of them, make 4 of them here. Don't go 2 for 8. Just make 4 of 8 with not a hand in your face. Kyrie Irving, be more aggressive. We talked when Coach was on with us. Now you can maybe get to the rim a little bit easier. We don't have a 7'2+ guy standing there with the ability to block your shots and be ultra athletic. Things should open up for the Dallas Mavericks. But I think it's just simple. I know what I'm getting out of Luka. I should know what I'm getting out of Kyrie Irving. And just the B-level players that have always stepped up throughout the playoffs, you're on your home court. We're not asking you to score 35 points. Just do your job. Wide open shot, make it, and you'll be fine tonight. That's it for the Dallas Mavericks.
P.J. Washington has gone over his number tonight of 14.5 in each of the first two games for Dallas. He has been the Mavericks' second leading scorer in both games 1 and 2, but that's not always a recipe for success. I think the primary focus, and rightfully so, is on Kyrie Irving in the points prop tonight. 23.5. It has been a dismal NBA Finals for Kyrie. 12 in game 1, 16 in game 2, 7 of 18 from the floor in that second game, 6 of 19. He has said Boston was not nearly as hostile as he expected it to be. Didn't see it reflected in the offensive output. He is also 0 for 8, goose egg from deep throughout this NBA Finals. And Donnie, that's where I would start if you're looking for value on Kyrie Irving. The points prop really hasn't changed, and I think it's natural to say if Dallas wins and covers, Kyrie needs at least 25 to clear that number. But 2.5 is his 3 points prop, and the over is even money, plus 100. Now, he scored 20-plus in 4 of the 5 games of the Western Conference Finals against the T-Wolves. In 3 of those 4, he made at least 3 threes. That would be how I attack Kyrie Irving outside of just the points prop to go over 23 and a hook.
Yeah, and also, if you're looking for some ulterior methods to bet Kyrie, how about just like points plus assist here? Because the one thing that you do know, you should be getting the best out of the superstars. And the one thing that we know is in a big moment in game number 3, you can't just say, hey, look, the ball just didn't find me, right? We've heard that in the past from superstar players. Stop it. You go take that ball. You need to enforce that in game number 3. So I do think if Kyrie gets around 20 points, you know what that means? He might have had 7, 8, or 9 assists in that game to go along with it. So that's the way I would approach it. And also, taking a point here, if you just flip it over quickly to the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum tonight, 26.5 points. I think that makes some sense to go to the over to sort of take back and claim that prize of MVP in the finals of the NBA. And also, Al Horford, as I teased earlier in the show, no Porzingis means more minutes for Horford. His over 1.5 3-point shot attempts, or 3-point shot makes some sense to go over.
Yeah. Listen, you don't need to cram it all in. We're going to look at the Celtics props anyway after the break. We'll do that up next with a best bet here on the early line.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
1.81 goals against average, 920 save percentage. He's also 6-2 in his last 8 road starts as well. The Oilers are a great road team. I actually think it's an advantage for them that they don't have home ice. That potentially 4 of the games are on the road. We've seen 56% of the games this year in the NHL playoffs, the road team has actually won.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Ahead of game number 3 of the NBA Finals tonight, Boston holds a 2-0 series advantage, just 2 victories away from championship banner number 18 hanging in the rafters inside TD Garden. That would be the most in the history of the association. But, Donnie, it seems as though, even if the Mavericks can make things interesting and win game 3 tonight, Boston is well on its way to winning an NBA championship. Dallas would need to win 4 of the next 5 games to win this series to even make things competitive. I say all of this because even if Dallas does win tonight, part of the conversation about the NBA Finals is who's going to win that Finals MVP award. And with the Celtics a minus 770 outright favorite to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy, who takes home the other hardware? Is it Jason Tatum? Is it Jaylen Brown, the Eastern Conference Finals MVP award winner? Or could it be somebody else? Tatum's points prop tonight, 26.5, the highest number still for Boston. A number he has not even flirted with so far in the first 2 games of this series. 16 in game 1, 18 in game 2. 6 of 22 from the floor in game number 2. Tatum is shooting 31.6% from the floor in the first 2 games of this NBA championship set. If you think Jason Tatum has any chance of winning the NBA Finals MVP award, it starts tonight, and he must go over 26 and a hook.
Oh, he absolutely has to, or else get a triple-double at that point where it's like, 24 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, something like that to steal those headlines. But also, what is interesting? He shot that way at home, which is typically opposite. Sometimes you go on the road, just to have a good shooting night. He's been struggling at home, so maybe a change of scenery actually will do him some good. But the one thing that we do know against Tatum, if he opens up this game 0 for 4 shooting, he's going to shoot 4 more times in the first quarter. There is no stopping this guy. You just need him to stay. What would you love? That first 3-point shot to go down right away, and it's going to be a solid night. From all of the player props here, points to the over, obviously we like Luka Doncic. From the Celtics perspective, to me, it's Tatum. I think you're going to get at least 20, 22, 23, 24 plus shots tonight out of him. He should be able to get that number.
9+ rebounds for Tatum as well in 8 of the last 9 for the Boston Celtics. So, DRS, it's game number 3 of the NBA Finals tonight. I ask you this small caveat because I think you might have a true best bet in a Major League Baseball game on a full Wednesday card here in MLB. So before we get there, what is the best bet for game number 3 tonight?
Yeah, we'll keep it simple. I think it's Al Horford. That 9.5 points prop to get 10 points in this game, I do think is certainly viable for that to happen. If we're looking at that 3-point shot for Al Horford, over 1.5 3-point shots made, I think that's a very good one. So I'm going to stick with the secondary players for the Celtics. No Kristaps Porzingis, which means more offensive efficiency possibly here for Al Horford. That's the way I'll go with him.
Double digits for old man Al in at least 3 of the last 6 for the Boston Celtics. Without Kristaps Porzingis, they need more offensive production out of Al Horford. We look at KP and what he had done offensively. 20 in game 1 in only 21 minutes. 12 early and often in game number 2 against Dallas, but really it could be defensively. Multiple blocks for Kristaps Porzingis in each of the first 2 games of this series. 3 in game 1, 2 more in game 2. Now, I'll have an NBA Finals best bet. I know Donnie has one in MLB. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time on this Wednesday for Bye Bye Bye. All right, Donnie right side, without further ado, what's the best bet on the diamond on this Wednesday?
Let's head out to Kauffman Stadium, where it's perfect weather conditions at first pitch, 85 degrees, wind blowing out double digits to left field, and that's where we're going to take a right-handed batter, and it's Aaron Judge, a 533 ISO power number against left-handed pitching over the past month. Daniel Lynch really struggling with right-handed batters. It's a match made in heaven. Now, also, typically I'd tell you, Ben, let's go 1 RBI. It's like a minus 160 price. I've never seen that before, maybe outside of Coors Field. Yeah. So we're going to go with 2 RBI tonight for Aaron Judge at a plus 190 price, which probably means he crushes one into the fountains out there in center field. So we'll see what happens tonight. It's Aaron Judge for me.
What's the single ribby price on Aaron Judge, just so we can note it?
Minus 160. Incredible.
Minus 160. He had 3 RBIs yesterday. Yes. He now has 62 this season, tied for the most in Major League Baseball with Jose Ramirez of the Guardians. But still, that is a very hefty number. My best bet, game number 3 of the 2024 NBA Finals tonight. I think you could make it simple. If the Mavericks win tonight, they cover as a 2.5-point favorite. But I'm going to go to Kyrie Irving over his 3 points prop of 2.5. It's now minus 102. It was even money plus 100 just a little bit ago. He's Donnie. I'm Ben. We'll see you on Thursday here on the Early Line. That's tomorrow starting at 8 a.m. Eastern.